You ever walk into your own birthday party and realize you're not the guest of honor? Yeah, that happened to me. Picture this. My 35th birthday, house full of friends, lights dimmed for the big surprise. I step inside, ready for cake, balloons, and maybe a heartfelt speech from my husband. Instead, everyone's clapping and cheering for my sister. My younger, prettier, always in the spotlight sister, Vanessa. And whose arm was draped around her waist? My husband, Nate. That was the night I realized I was living in a play where I wasn't the leading lady. I was just the background character in my own life. Hey, I'm Caroline, and before I tell you how I burned down the little fantasy world my sister and my husband built behind my back, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this one ends. Now, let me rewind. Vanessa and I were classic opposites. I was the steady one, responsible, a planner, the kind of kid who color-coded her homework. Vanessa? She floated through life on charm and a smile. Teachers forgave her missed assignments, bosses forgave her sick days that were really hangover recoveries, and guys, well, they forgave everything. But I never thought she'd come for the one thing that actually mattered to me. Nate and I had been married for 9 years. Not perfect years. We fought about money, about his long work hours, about whether or not we were ready for kids, but I thought we were solid. Safe. The kind of couple that could weather storms. And then my sister started showing up more and more. First it was casual visits, just dropping by. Then it was helping Nate plan little surprises for me, which in hindsight, feels like being stabbed with a gift bow. I should have known the night I walked into the kitchen and found them whispering, laughing like teenagers with a secret. I brushed it off. Family's close, right? Except Vanessa had this way of leaning into him. That hand-on-the-arm thing women do when they want to mark territory. And Nate didn't pull away. But nothing prepared me for the text that would tilt my entire world sideways. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was at work, slogging through budget reports, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Vanessa, except it wasn't meant for me. I can't wait to see you tonight. Don't tell her you're working late, winky face. And she attached a heart emoji. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard I thought my coworkers could hear it. In that instant, everything clicked. The late nights. The extra showers. The way Vanessa had started calling Nate Natey, a nickname only I used to use. I remember gripping my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. My sister and my husband. My blood and my vows. I wanted to scream. Throw the phone. Call them both out. But instead, I took a breath. And then another. Because sometimes the best revenge doesn't start with fire. It starts with silence. And that, my friends, is where this story really begins. Don't go anywhere. Part 2 is where I show you exactly how I confirmed what they were doing behind my back. And, trust me, the way I found out will make you want to check your partner's phone bill immediately. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. When people say the truth will set you free, what they don't tell you is it'll also make you want to burn your whole life down in the process. After that accidental text from Vanessa, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My hands shook every time Nate kissed me goodbye in the mornings. I kept wondering, was he heading to work or to her? Now listen, I'm not the type to go full FBI wife. But you push a woman far enough, and suddenly she's a one-woman surveillance agency with more tabs open than the CIA. First stop? The phone bill. Because yes, I'm the one who pays it. And let me tell you, those call logs don't lie. Dozens of late-night calls to Vanessa's number. Texts at 2 a.m. A whole conversation while I was sitting right next to him watching Netflix. He'd been texting my sister under a blanket while pretending to laugh at the office. And then, my favorite discovery, Nate had her saved under a fake name. Victor. Yeah, because nothing says totally normal business relationship like texting Victor heart emojis. I knew I had them. But a part of me still wanted undeniable, concrete proof. You know, the kind you can slap down on the table and say, explain this, you lying snake. So I started watching. Thursday nights? Supposedly late work meetings. Only problem? The office building's parking garage has cameras. My friend Lisa's husband works in security. One little favor later, I had grainy black and white footage of Nate's car leaving at 6 p.m. and pulling into Vanessa's apartment complex at 6:27. Like clockwork. And here's where it gets twisted. Vanessa didn't even try to hide it. Her blinds wide open, lights on, laughing at something on the couch. And guess who came strolling through her front door carrying takeout? My husband. Watching that footage, I swear I went cold. It wasn't even rage, it was clarity. Like someone wiped the fog off my life and showed me the ugly picture beneath. Now, most women would have kicked down the apartment door right then. Confronted. Screamed. Thrown hands. But me? I closed the laptop. I smiled. Because I realized something powerful. If they thought they were clever, then they had no idea who they were dealing with. I started playing my role to perfection. Sweet, oblivious wife. Loving sister. Smiling at their little inside jokes, pretending not to notice how Vanessa wore a necklace I'd seen Nate buy for me. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they were winning. Because the more arrogant they got, the sloppier they became. And sloppy people are easy to catch. One Saturday morning, Nate left his phone charging in the kitchen. Rookie mistake. While he showered, I picked it up. Locked. Of course. But remember when I said I was the responsible sister? Yeah, Vanessa used my birthday for every password. Same 4 digits since high school. I tried it. The phone unlocked like a charm. And what do I find? A photo gallery. Not of me. Not of our dog. But of Vanessa. Pictures of her in restaurants. Pictures of her at the beach. Pictures of her in my backyard, sitting in my lawn chair, drinking wine with my husband. I should have smashed the phone right then. But instead, I took screenshots, backed them up, emailed them to myself. Evidence, baby. Neat little files labeled Operation Homewrecker. By the time Nate strolled out of the shower, towel around his waist, humming like the world's most innocent man, I had enough blackmail material to crush both him and Vanessa into dust. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to just expose them. Oh no. I was going to build a masterpiece. A revenge so precise, so devastating, that they'd never see it coming until it was already too late. Comment below, what would you do if your husband was sneaking around with your own sister? Confront them right away, or play the long game like me. Because part 3, that's where the real fun begins. That's where I show you how I laid the groundwork for the ultimate takedown. And, trust me, you're going to want front row seats for that. When people talk about revenge like it's a feverish impulse, a late-night text, a smashed face, a humiliating post, they forget the other kind, the surgical kind. The kind that takes time, patience, and an almost boring level of detail. The kind that feels less like fury and more like assembling a complicated piece of IKEA furniture while blindfolded. That's the kind I chose. After I had the photos, the parking footage, the Victor contact, and the accidental text, there was a brief moment where triumph fluttered through me like a sparrow. I could have burned the whole house down with a single dramatic confrontation. But I didn't. Because revenge that's loud is fleeting. Revenge that's slow and inevitable? That lasts. First, I made a list. Not a messy, emotional list, but a spreadsheet. Old habits die hard. I'm an operations manager by trade. My brain thinks in columns and contingencies. Column A, what they value. Column B, what they fear. Column C, leverage I can acquire. Column D, timeline. Yes, I literally labeled one sheet Operation Reclaim. Call it melodramatic. Call it therapeutic. Call it whatever you need to. This is my confessional kitchen table, and spreadsheets calm me down. What did they value? Nate loved his image. He cultivated it like a bonsai tree. Smooth, respectable, dependable. He also loved his clients and his referral pipeline. Vanessa valued 2 things, attention and opportunity. If attention was a currency, she was a billionaire. Opportunity? She pounced on anything that promised a better wardrobe or a prettier Instagram. So I built my plan around that. Step 1. Isolation of narrative. If they could control what people believed, friends, family, clients, they could survive this. If I could control the narrative, they'd be naked. I started small, quietly shifting perceptions without seeming accusatory. A well-placed offhand remark to Nate's mother about how funny it is we never see Vanessa during the week made her notice patterns. A private message to my sister's best friend praising Vanessa's ambition came with a curious question about how she handled stressful relationships. People who talk listen. I let rumors sprout like dandelions. Step 2. Financial leverage. Affairs are messy emotionally, but the law and money are merciless. I dug into small things, joint accounts, benefit allocations, the couple's credit cards, because desperation makes people sloppy. I'm not proud of fishing in bank statements, but again, I pay the bills. A credit card logged multiple purchases at a boutique spa with a Mr. V note. Money that should have been for utility bills was funneled into restaurant tabs. Not crimes yet, but suspicious, and suspicion is a lever. Step 3. Allies. No one wins alone. I recruited with the subtlety of a cat. I needed 2 types of people, practical and emotional. Practical. Lisa's husband in security, who'd already helped with the parking footage, a paralegal I'd met at a PTA meeting who owed me a favor. Emotional. Jasper, Vanessa's ex-colleague and, oddly, someone who'd always treated Vanessa like a project rather than a partner. I didn't tell anyone my plan in full, I never did. But I handed them parts, like puzzle pieces, that fit only when the box was opened. There was also a tactical move I almost didn't make because it felt petty. I bought a burner phone. Not glamorous, a flip phone from a gas station, and I used it to text Vanessa a series of innocuous invitations: coffee, a girls' night, a plea for design help. She replied with the sort of flirty, casual tone she used with Nate. Each message, each reply I saved. Evidence, again. But more than that, patterns. The language she used, her timing, the way she signed off with an emoji. Patterns tell stories. The quietest, most delicious part of planning was psychological. I needed them to feel safe, then subtly destabilized. So I amplified their arrogance. I complimented Nate on his presentation at a neighborhood business breakfast, privately telling him how impressive he'd been. I gushed over Vanessa's new aesthetic at brunch in front of her friends, artful praise that made them lean into each other. Let them think they were winning. Humans relax into victory, and in relaxation they make mistakes. One evening, I did something small and human that turned out to be a linchpin. I invited Vanessa over to pick out paint colors, a lie of precaution dressed in sisterly tones. She arrived wearing the outfit she liked when she wanted to be noticed. That whisper of silk blouse, the necklace I'd seen Nate buy, a smile surgical in its warmth. We had wine. We talked. I let her monologue about Nate the way one does about a crush still sparkling at the edges. Then I mentioned, casually, funny, Nate mentioned he's been doing a lot of work late at the office. He's so driven lately. You're both crushing goals. She responded like I knew nothing. Yeah, totally business. He's been such a support lately. She touched my arm while she said it, territory marking again, and my heart kept a steady beat. I smiled. I knew then she genuinely believed she had control. Around week 3 of planning, I started pushing their close circle gently. A carefully worded DM to Nate's top client, not an accusation, not even a question, just, hey, thinking of recommending Nate's office for some staging projects, do you have his current availability? The client replied asking if Nate had turned down projects recently. Nate's assistant forwarded the thread to him with a FYI. The little seeds I planted were nodding together across different parts of their lives. And when people feel pressure in one area, they make mistakes in another. Human error loves pressure. The grand strategy had 3 pillars: evidence, exposure, and reclamation. Evidence was obvious: photos, timestamps, burner texts. I was methodical. I made duplicate drives, physical printouts, cloud backups. I wanted ironclad proof that could survive denials, lawyerly gaslighting, and tears. Exposure had to be public enough to remove the possibility of spin, but targeted enough to avoid the spectacle of internet mobs. I did not want viral humiliation framed as cruelty. I wanted elegant inevitability. Something that, when revealed, made their excuses sound thin and desperate. The Capitol Grill, a neighborhood fundraiser, a weekday realtor event. Options swirled in the spreadsheet. I picked a place where their bravado would meet a crowd who mattered, mutual friends, a few clients, and the one local reporter who always covered society, pieces, and loved a story with a human interest angle. I told myself I wasn't after cruelty, I wanted consequences. Reclamation was the part that felt most like medicine. Expose them, and then take back what they'd stolen. Not through petty theft, but by reclaiming my dignity, my finances, and my story. That meant getting my legal ducks in a row, meeting a divorce attorney who specialized in marital assets and who spoke plainly about what extramarital conduct could mean in asset division. It meant quietly applying for a promotion I'd been told I wasn't ready for at work and asking for references from people who'd seen me at my best. It meant reclaiming every small thing they tried to make normal, late nights, secret passwords, that ugly vase they gave me last Christmas with lipstick still on it. There were logistical details I'll spare you for now, the broker whose name I had to sweet-talk into double-checking, a closing schedule so Nate would be in the office the day I needed him to be. The florist who saved all of Nate's spear-thrust smile receipts so I could trace a suspiciously timed bouquet. The barista at Vanessa's favorite coffee shop who gave me a timeline of Wednesdays she saw Nate walk in. These little alliances weren't heroic. They were practical. People help when you appeal to their self-interest, their curiosity, or their kindness. I appealed to all three. One of the most satisfying parts of the planning was watching them get sloppy. When people think they're invincible, they stop pretending as convincingly. Vanessa began leaving her social media on public more often, posting late-night selfies from work events and tagging Nate, confidence in pixels. Nate started to brag a little too loudly about a new design client in front of neighbors. Each inflated brag made them more visible. Each visible move made the net tighter. By the end of the 6th week, everything was in place. The burner phone had its threads. The cloud drive had copies of the most damning messages. Jasper, the quiet, practical ally I'd leaned on, had agreed that he would be willing to speak to Vanessa's friends and corroborate certain things if asked. Lisa's husband had agreed to keep a casual eye on the garage footage and save a copy of a certain Thursday evening. My attorney had seen the evidence and smiled that small, professional smile that says someone is finally taking the right steps. Good work, she told me. Now we need an audience. And that's the thing about planning. It makes you feel godlike in a tiny way. You can see the arc. You can watch the dominoes line up, even if you can't yet see the sound of the final crash. There were nights when I almost wavered. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and imagine Nate's voice, imagine Vanessa's fingers in my hair from childhood. I'd imagine my dog curled up on the couch, tilting his head at the sound of my shoes leaving the house. I hadn't planned for the ache. Revenge is a high with a hangover. But the ache also sharpened my resolve. I didn't want fiery catharsis. I wanted structural change. And then came the date. I'd picked a reasonable public place, the local art museum's gala, a charity event they both attended every year. A room full of mutual friends and donors, all of them invested in appearances and reputations. An evening where men smoothed ties, women in tasteful gowns chatted about the latest exhibit, where a whispered scandal could unfold quietly with maximum consequence. I had RSVP'd as a +1 to a colleague who owed me favor, perfect cover if anyone asked why I was bringing a guest. I didn't tell Jasper everything. He didn't need to know the timing. I told my attorney the plan. She nodded and told me only one thing that matters in moments like this. Everything we need should be backed up twice, physically and digitally. No theatrics until you have a clear legal path. On the morning of the gala, I woke up with the steady calm of someone about to perform a role they'd rehearsed for weeks. I wore a black dress that fit like armor and a red lipstick that refused to smudge. Nate left the house with a kiss that felt like thrift store fabric, familiar but cheap. Vanessa texted a picture of her dress. I replied with a heart emoji I'd stolen from a friend's social media, casual, sisterly. Let there be comfort. Let there be arrogance. The museum smelled like old books and vintage polish. Glassware chimed. I scanned the crowd and found Nate and Vanessa 2 tables over, laughing like a couple of conspirators. The timing was perfect. The crowd hushed when the silent auction pieces were revealed. People leaned forward, and in a room of eyes the size of coins, I felt the kind of clarity that comes when you know your next move will land. I took a slow breath, looked at the program in my clutch, and reached for my phone. I hit send on an email that would, in 12 minutes, gently make the room notice. Except life, as it always does, had one more twist up its sleeve. As I tapped the last word, my phone lit up with a message I did not expect. From Jasper. We need to talk. Not tonight. Now. It's about Vanessa. My hands went cold. I stared at the text and felt my neat domino line wobble like an earthquake had whispered under the table. Jasper had found something. Something that might be better than what I had. Or something that might change everything. I wanted to be furious, at the distraction, at the timing, but what I felt most was a thrill I hadn't allowed myself in weeks. Because in a game of chess, the unexpected move can be a gift. Want to know what Jasper found and how it changed everything? Hit subscribe and ring the bell. Part 4 is where the trap is sprung and the world tilts. Comment below, would you have paused your plan to chase a wild card like Jasper's find, or would you have stayed the course? I'm reading. If Part 3 was all spreadsheets, secrets, and whispered alliances, Part 4 was fireworks. Because let me tell you, revenge might be best served cold, but when it finally hits the table, it's sizzling. Remember that text from Jasper? We need to talk. Not tonight. Now. I slipped away from the museum gala, stilettos clicking on marble floors, and found him outside by the fountain. His face was pale, his hands clenched around his phone. Caroline, he said, I didn't want to believe it, but I found messages between Vanessa and another man. She's not just betraying you with Nate. She's betraying me too. Multiple men. It's a pattern. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My sister wasn't just stealing my husband. She was using Nate as one pawn in an entire game of deceit. That wasn't love. That wasn't even lust. That was power, her favorite drug. And right then, my plan shifted from exposure to annihilation. I waited until dessert was being served. Timing is everything in theater, after all. The museum lights softened, champagne glasses sparkled, and Nate and Vanessa were holding court at their table like a smug king and queen. Perfect. I stood, raised my glass, and cleared my throat. Excuse me, everyone, I said, my voice sugar-coated but steady. I'd like to make a toast. Heads turned. Conversations hushed. Nate blinked at me in confusion. Vanessa smiled, thinking, no doubt, that I was about to praise her latest charity committee. I smiled right back. Tonight is about art. About truth. About what happens when beauty and honesty meet. So I'd like to share some truth. Then, with one tap, the projector screen behind me lit up. Not with the scheduled auction slides. No. With a slideshow I'd cued in the museum's AV system. Photo 1. Nate's car pulling into Vanessa's apartment complex. Photo 2. Vanessa in my backyard chair, sipping wine, Nate's hand on her knee. Photo 3. A text chain between Victor and Vanessa, with heart emojis and plans for late-night meetings. Gasps rippled through the room like a wave. Someone actually dropped a fork. Nate's face drained of color. Vanessa froze, her smile cracking into something raw and panicked. The whispers started immediately. Is that Nate? With his wife's sister. But I wasn't finished. Oh no. Of course, I said, my voice carrying across the room, this isn't just about my husband's betrayal or my sister's. It's about patterns. Because when someone lies once, they'll lie again. I clicked to the next slide. Screenshots Jasper had given me of Vanessa's flirty messages with not just Nate, but 2 other men. One was a married client. The other? The chair of the gala committee. The room went silent. And then, chaos. The chairwoman gasped so loudly it echoed. Her husband stood up, face red with fury. Half the table turned to glare at Vanessa, who looked like she'd swallowed glass. And Nate? He tried to stand, to speak, but all that came out was, Caroline, this isn't what it looks like. Oh, but it is, I cut him off. And everyone here can see exactly what it looks like. You wanted to play games in the dark? Consider this your spotlight. I set down my glass, the clink loud enough to end the show. Enjoy dessert. Then I walked out. Not fast. Not flustered. Calm. Heels clicking like applause behind me. Outside, Jasper was waiting, jaw tight, but eyes almost grateful. You didn't just expose them, he said. You burned the stage they were performing on. And now, I told him, they can dance in the ashes. That night, my phone blew up. Messages from friends, relatives, even coworkers. Some were sympathetic. Some were shocked. But the best ones? The ones that said, you did the right thing. They deserved it. Because here's the thing, affairs feed on silence. On shadows. Once the light hits, they shrivel. And Nate and Vanessa? Oh, they shriveled fast. Nate's firm suspended him pending ethics review. Vanessa was kicked off 2 charity boards before the weekend ended. Their reputations, their shiny little images, they weren't just tarnished. They were obliterated. But that wasn't the sweetest part. Not yet. The sweetest part was still to come. Don't go anywhere. Part 5 is where I tell you how I picked up the pieces, rebuilt my life stronger than ever, and got the kind of ending neither Nate nor Vanessa could ever imagine. Subscribe if you haven't already, you're not going to want to miss this final chapter. And comment below, was the public reveal too far or exactly right? Revenge feels good in the moment. Don't let anyone lie to you about that. Watching Nate and Vanessa squirm under the spotlight I flipped on them was delicious. But the real satisfaction came afterward, in the quiet, steady way my life rebuilt itself while theirs fell apart. Because here's what happened next. 3 days after the gala, Nate moved out. Not because I asked, because he couldn't face me. He packed a duffel bag, muttering about privacy and space, and drove off to a rental condo downtown. You know the type, tiny, sterile, all chrome and glass. The kind of place single guys in midlife crises think makes them look successful. By the end of the month, his firm mutually parted ways with him. Translation: his clients didn't want to be represented by the guy who'd been caught cheating on his wife with her sister in a room full of donors. Funny how integrity suddenly matters when money's on the line. And Vanessa? Oh, poor Vanessa. She tried to play the victim. Posting cryptic quotes on Instagram. Some people can't handle your shine. Haters don't win. But shine doesn't pay rent when your sugar daddy gets fired. Within 6 weeks, she'd been booted from her condo because she couldn't keep up the payments. She tried crashing with friends, but betrayal travels fast. Nobody wanted to open their doors to someone who'd stabbed her own sister in the back. The last I heard, she'd moved 2 states away, working part-time at a boutique, still chasing the spotlight that wasn't looking for her anymore. As for me, I thrived. The divorce went smoothly for me anyway. Ironclad evidence of infidelity makes judges sympathetic. I kept the house, most of the savings, and yes, even the dog. Nate's lawyer tried to argue, but you can't exactly spin text messages like, "Don't tell her you're working late, winky face," into a misunderstanding. Work noticed, too. My boss pulled me aside and said, if you can manage your personal life with that level of control, you can manage a whole team. Promotion. Pay raise. My first order of business was ordering new office furniture, because if Vanessa taught me anything, it's that aesthetics do matter. And then there was Jasper. Sweet, blindsided Jasper, who'd been collateral damage in Vanessa's little game. At first, we were allies, 2 betrayed souls comparing legal notes, meeting for coffee, venting about lawyers and paperwork. But somewhere between lattes and laughter, it shifted. It wasn't rebound, not desperation. It was respect. Genuine admiration. Jasper wasn't flashy, but he was steady. Honest. The kind of man who looks you in the eye and listens when you speak. The kind of man I'd forgotten existed. 6 months later, we weren't just friends, we were something more. He started photographing events for my company. His work was brilliant, my campaigns shone, and suddenly, we weren't just rebuilding our lives separately. We were building something together. And here's the truth I learned, the kind of truth you want to stitch into a pillow. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the people who betrayed you. Sometimes it's living a life so good, they can't even imagine being part of it anymore. Because now, when I wake up in the mornings, it's not to the weight of secrets pressing down on my chest. It's to sunlight, fresh coffee, and a man who doesn't make me question my worth. And when I look back at Nate and Vanessa, I don't feel rage anymore. Just relief. Relief that they're out of my orbit, spinning in the wreckage of their own choices. So to anyone listening who's sitting in silence right now, staring at the cracks in their marriage or their family, wondering if revenge is worth it, here's my advice. Don't just get even. Get better. And that's the end of my story. What do you think? Was the public reveal the ultimate move, or would you have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, because I've got more stories about betrayal and payback you won't want to miss.